Hey now, yeah, good morning. Hey now, PSW staff, clients, friends. Join us for a Film Scoring Monday class. This is, of course, when we look at a very famous scene and I take out the music. You come up with the best possible choice. We've been doing this for a long time. You guys get better and better. I try to make it a little bit harder each time or a little bit more challenging so we're learning something and not just recycling things. So I'm learning with you guys. Last week we did Miller's Crossing, and that turned out, I think, really well. Getting kind of our Irish music in our blood for a little bit. We're going to be going to another looking at another famous scene that's going to be really exciting. And, yeah, I guess it's time to get the motorcycle going from out of your garage, and we're going to start taking a look at a very famous scene, famous movie we'll talk about. Today we're going to be looking at The Great Escape. The Great Escape, or as I call it, me moving out of my parents' house. That was mine. But this is a little bit larger of an escape. This is a 1963 American epic adventure war film starring the great Steve McQueen, who was one of the most famous actors in the 60s. And this is the epic true story, mostly true story, of the mass breakout by the Allies from Stalag, which was Stalag Luft III, which was a German prisoner of war camp during World War II. So this is obviously the movie's out in '63, but it actually happens in 1944. This breakout. So we'll talk about the history of it. Let's first, and mostly it's very iconic for several reasons. Mostly the motorcycle chase and jump scene, which we're going to score and look at later. Considered one of the best stunts ever performed. Not by Steve McQueen, although he did do a lot of the motorcycle riding. So, but I mean, we got to get over there because right now I'm in Koreatown and the scene's not in Koreatown. So we got to get over there to where we're going to leave Miller's Crossing in New Orleans. We're going to go over to Fusen on the Austrian border. They filmed the scene pretty much on location, and this is where the famous motorcycle scene is going to take place. 1963. You're probably wondering, well, what's going on in '63? Because I do like to give context of when this movie comes out, and the budget was $3.8 million. It makes $11 million at the box office, so that's pretty good. Directed by John Sturges, who directed several other films, and music's written by Elmer Bernstein. No relation to Leonard Bernstein. They knew each other, and Leonard Bernstein was called the East Bernstein, and then if you were talking about the West Bernstein, that was Elmer. So, '63, what happens? Beatlemania starts to come in because the Beatles come out with their first album in 1963, Please Please Me. Huge. What else? Zip codes start being implemented. Everyone needs a zip code. I mean, so I didn't know that. Martin Luther King delivers his I Have a Dream speech. I don't know if you heard of that speech, but that's this year. Members of Ku Klux Klan, they dynamite the Baptist Church in Alabama, which is horrible. And another horrible event is that our president, JFK, is assassinated in '63, November 22nd. So the times they are changing. Times are always changing, but I feel like particularly in the '60s, almost every year something huge is impactful still is happening. So, and what movies come out? Well, we got Cleopatra coming out, huge epic movie. To Kill a Mockingbird comes out, which was also scored by Elmer Bernstein. So this is another score that he did, great score to that. And then Lawrence of Arabia comes out that same year. We did Lawrence of Arabia's film scoring class long time ago. So that's just a taste of culture that's going on. So Great Escape's based on a nonfiction book of the same name, Paul Brickell's book, and it's a first-hand account of this big escape by British prisoners of war from this German POW camp, and the movie portrays a fictionalized version of the escape. I mean, there were things that actually happened with the tunnels being built and all these things, but obviously for commercial purposes, you need a star, you need a cast, and you need a little bit of finessing just to get the audience in their seats, for better or worse. But it is based on a true event. On March 24th, 1944, one of the biggest things were carried out during World War II, where it was this mass escape of Allied soldiers from this German prisoner of war camp, and it was the largest attempted during World War II. It didn't have anything to do with the motorcycle jump, but that's Hollywood throwing in an extra oomph at the end to get people excited, and it is a very great scene, but don't think there was a motorcycle escape, but there was this escape nonetheless. Hundreds of men put their lives on the line, not only for freedom. I mean, if this is imprisonment, I mean, if you're in prison, I would think every minute of your day spent in prison is, how do I get out of here? And the Nazis were so evil and forceful of making sure people didn't leave. It's one thing that at least you weren't slaughtered and massacred, but I mean, it was just evil all around. It was a terrible time to be under Hitler's tyranny. The war ends, though. Well, it's about another year until the war ends, because this is in 44, war ends in 45, but still, a year's a long time. I mean, this has been going on a long time. I can't imagine that level. It's kind of like the Shawshank scene that we scored, the joyous moment that he felt when he kind of went through all those sewers. It's not the same, but you see my my parallel kind of a little bit. So and Steve McQueen stars as Captain Virgil Hiltz, one of the 3 Americans in the camp. And McQueen had done 2 previous World War II films before, so he didn't want to do this movie unless he said he could do a cool motorcycle scene. And they're like, okay, sure. I mean, that's what when you're a star, I guess you can do ridiculous, have ridiculous requests. But it was a pretty cool scene. He was very into motorcycle riding, and they thought, well, okay, sure, we'll let you do this thing, because when you're a big star, you can do these things. So his demand was that he'd get to ride a motorcycle during the filming, and they put it into a very epic escape scene. Although he doesn't quite escape. We'll see later. But yeah, so they filmed this in Munich. The exteriors of the sequences were shot in Rhine country and other areas near the North Sea, and his scene is filmed right on the Austrian border. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So Elmer Bernstein, composer, mostly he wrote the Ten Commandments, which we did a film scoring class on. He did the Magnificent Seven, which is maybe his most famous score. Also wrote the score for Thoroughly Modern Millie, which is a very fun musical. That was in 1967. But he was nominated for 14 Oscars in total. Take a listen to Magnificent Seven. This is in 1960, and see how fun this is. We hear some influences from Aaron Copland, right? Even though Copland had written the stuff in the 40s, he kind of established the American sound. And when you hear the Magnificent Seven, it sounds like a Western. I mean, it is a Western. The music sounds American, and we talked about why there's an American sound that Copland started and that Bernstein is still, doing and writing it so well. So just thought I'd play you a little clip of that. Okay, the scene, the bike jump. This is the very famous scene. This is the same motorcycle Henry Winkler used in Happy Days, actually, just in case you were wondering, because I had been up all night thinking about, I wonder where that motorcycle had been. It's really one of the most famous legendary escape scenes in movies. So he's on the run from prison, obviously, outnumbered by all these Nazis. But he's just a few yards away from the Swiss border, which is where freedom is. But the Nazis are moving in, and he takes he gets on his bike and goes over a 6-foot barbed wire fence. That's the only scene that required a stunt. So that is not Steve McQueen doing that one jump. You want to see it? Let's see the scene that we're going to be scoring with the Bernstein score. So he crashes, of course. He makes a few of the leaps, but then he crashes with the barbed wire. So, it's kind of too bad, but it might have been too Disney-like or fantasy-like to be like, he made it. So he almost makes it. So McQueen did mostly all of that except for that big leap, which Bud Ekins, he did the stunt for that, and he also did the stunt for Steve McQueen's famous bullet scene in the film Bullet, which we might score later, I don't know. But that was his stunt man. What are we hearing in the scene? Bernstein's score. He really took a lot of time scoring this movie, as many film composers did back in the day. He gave a lot of the characters their own motifs, or we talked about leitmotifs of different themes happening when different characters arrive. That goes back to Wagner and hundreds of years ago, 100 years ago or so. And then there's the Great Escape main theme, which is very famous. This was such a popular score, though, and it supposedly it helped Bernstein live. He lived off the score's royalties for the rest of his life. So it's kind of cool to think that you work really hard and then it's successful and then you're like, okay, I can retire now. So it doesn't always happen, but it does happen. The score also has, there's militaristic sounds because of the military, and there's some warm, lovely, soft themes in it that, and that always is good to humanize these prisoners, to give them some emotion, where they're not just robots. But it is also, if we hear, there's a lot of bravery in the music, and I wonder why. These are some of these questions we just don't know. So let's take a look at the scene. Sans music. So here's what I want to do. Okay, if you notice in the score goes through changes. It's a minute-long scene, which is a little longer than I let you guys do. But I figured I really want a thoroughly thought out and composed score. Some of these action scenes are really great that you send in action music, but if it just has a constant action beat rhythm, that's not going to work for this. If you noticed how well it's composed, Bernstein composes this, you listen that there's not like a middle, beginning, and ending necessarily, but it starts and stops, and it becomes heroic, and then it becomes, oh no, is he going to make it? And then it starts again, just like the motorcycle starts and stops again. So I don't want just a regular, just sounding action theme thing. It's got to go through different moods. It's got to be. I want you guys to really think of a score, even though it's a minute long. Think of it as having a beginning, middle, and end score. So if it's a constant action beat, that's not going to work for that. I know it's easy to Google some of these things that I'm saying, like epic and action music, but that tells me that you're not listening, you're not watching the scene properly, because he's not sure what to do. So the music's got to be a little bit, of course, actiony, but it's also got to be, I mean, they don't kill him, but they could easily kill him. I mean, he's planning the biggest escape of his life. Think if Nazis were after you, and if you don't make this is, you'll die. I mean, this is not easy. And what Bernstein does is he breaks up the score. So he's not just writing. This is not going to be Hans Zimmer drums throughout the whole way, because this is more of a thoughtful action sequence, because you see his expressions, you see the close-up, you see him going back, starting and stopping. So I do want you to find a piece of music that almost tells a story with using action, it should be exciting. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be exciting, it should be exciting, but I don't want just a constant beat of excitement, of pumping up, because I just don't feel like that's a cop-out. We need to really start thinking about a film score, and a film score sometimes can just be a heroic beat going on, but that's more for like trailer music or something like that. This is a very important scene, so take time with it. Let me know if you have questions. I'm here for you. This is going to be harder, so I don't want you to just send action theme and email it to me and say, well, this is it. And this might require you to listen to several things and then to say, oh, in minute 3 of this action scene, it goes from soft to actiony to, I want it to go through the different emotions. Even though this is only a 1 minute, escape scene, it should have different levels of adventure in it. It's not just an adventure theme. It's thoroughly thought out and scored. So I told you this gets a little harder each time, but this is how we learn. This is how we grow. This is how I learn too from you guys. So get it to me by tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be Bonnie-rific. I think I'm thinking it could be Bonnie-rific if we just keep our noses to the grindstone and work. Okay, I'm just being silly. Love you guys. Miss you. Get it to me tomorrow. Call me if you need any questions. This is not easy. This is a serious assignment, but I know you can do it. You guys always come and impress me. So, okay, said it all. Said too much, actually. Can't wait to talk to you tomorrow about a composer we're going to really have a good time with. And, it's Monday, man. Let's just make it a great week. It's one thing to have a great week. It's hard to have a great week, but if you make it a great week, then you're like, you have an attitude change of whatever happens, it's going to be good. Okay, that's it. See you tomorrow.